please give a warm welcome to writer-director Kleber Mendonça Filho. Over here, Kleber. Welcome, 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 Kleber.
Thank you very much.
What a great honor to have you here.
I'm very impressed by the whole building and the whole architecture here, and of course this incredible cinema.
Well,
you're very lucky to have this as your local cinema.
Are we recording that? Okay. Well, the great honor is to have you here. What an amazing film. What I introduced, I said, is one of my favorite films I've seen in a long time. What an incredible thing. And I want to start with the one thing that blew my mind when I was watching your film is the editing. The way you play with memory with the editing, the fact that it actually reminded me of Nicholas Roeg films in the 1970s, where you let memory guide the cut, the edit. Can you tell us about your working with your editors and your approach to editing the film?
Thank you for mentioning Roeg, because he was indeed a reference. I mean, I cannot think about the cinema from the 70s without going through, remembering some of his films, Performance, Don't Look Now, Walkabout. These are films I truly admire. But I have not seen any modern director using his editing techniques. Yeah, but cinema is a collection of traces of memory, I think, and every time we see a film, we're witnessing a new. If it's a new film, it's a new piece of archive, which, with the passing of time, it will become a memory. Hopefully, it will be a good film, so that we remember it dearly. It doesn't always happen. But I worked with 2 editors for the first time in my life. I think I wanted to speed up the process, but I also wanted to have the pleasure of working with them. I did not have to choose which editor I would be working with, because my previous film, Pictures of Ghosts, you can find it on the Criterion channel here in the US.
The
documentary, yeah. I had done it with Mateus Farias, a good friend and editor. And my other films, I had done them with Eduardo Serrano. So for this one, because it was a much bigger project, I worked with both, and I would go to Mateus in the morning with my bike, and then have lunch and go to Eduardo in the afternoon. So it was a first experience like that. And it worked really well. They would take care of different parts of the film, and I would be the one who was, going back and forth between the 2 houses and the 2 editors. These were different locations. And it was a lot of the memory aspects of the film were written into the script, because there are ideas connected to Wagner's character, and it takes a while for us to be informed as to what exactly is happening to him.
Correct.
And once we understand what's happening to him, he's also thinking about his own life and thinking about what has been happening to him. Mm-hmm. And then it's an interesting moment to bring flashes of memory.
Yes.
And suggestions of a different time. So during the cinema sequence, when he's giving he's being recorded by
Correct.
Elsa, she has a tape recorder, And that's when we fully understand that there is somebody else listening in the future, which is an idea that I wanted to develop. Possibly because I'm the son of a historian who worked with tape recorders for many years. And then there in 77, there is somebody in the future listening, and he's telling a story that took place in 74. So I love these different layers of history, which you can deal with them with a simple cut. I still believe that the cut is one of the most beautiful special effects, and they're very inexpensive. All you have to do is cut.
Yeah, yeah. But you also, and I mentioned when I introduced the film, I've seen it twice, and I can't wait to see it a third time. You also cut before or after the protagonist's awareness lights up. So, and why? I find personally, I find it added tension in the audience and surprise. I would love to hear why you did that technique.
I really believe that you learn things as you watch films, and that was a lesson that I learned when I saw one of my favorite American films, which is Don Siegel's The Beguiled. Has anybody seen The Beguiled here? It's a 1971 film.
With Clint Eastwood.
With Clint Eastwood.
And Geraldine Page.
Yes, Geraldine Page. And I mean, it's a very different film from, The Secret Agent, but the main character there, he also hides information about himself. And there are a couple of moments in the film where the editing tells you a little bit about him, which is completely at odds with what he's actually saying to the other characters, and these are flashes without sound. It's just a flash. The sound remains the sound that's taking place in the scene we are watching. So the flash doesn't come with a sound insert. It's just an edit with the picture. And I've always been intrigued by that, by the use of editing like that. And of course, Nicholas Roeg did that, I think, 1 year before Siegel in Walkabout. And then he did it again in Don't Look Now, but in an even more complex way, because I think it works wonderfully also in that film, but he goes deeper into the cuts, into the editing, because we get to see what the parents remember. They lost a child in the film, and the whole film becomes a jumble, a fascinating jumble of images which come from these main characters.
And that was your idea also with this film?
But I think more like in The Beguiled, because it's really about looking at a character's face, Wagner's face, and he's clearly thinking about something that is disturbing to him, and then we get an insert. For example, tell me about Girotti. And it's really hard for him to discuss this man. And then he takes a deep breath, and then we see Girotti without actually listening to Girotti. He doesn't open his mouth. And then he begins to unload the information about that man. So yeah, it's very much about editing, but it's also about memory and about facing facts.
On the same line, then your DP. We're used to seeing films about Brazil in the 1970s, and it's portrayed very somber and sort of darkened. And then your approach is the opposite with your cinematographer. You use anamorphic lenses, and it's like richness of color and vibrancy. Tell us about your approach.
I think every time I think about a new film, I really think about it has to begin with the desire to shoot the film. I really wanted to do this, to set the film in 1977. So that's one almost sensual desire in terms of I really want to make a period piece and have to deal with all the challenges of, period. Maybe that's why I come into this building and I'm like, this is great. I mean, I could make something 1962 here, or maybe 1927 maybe.
But the difference is that your film, we're used to seeing films that deal with the past, but they're seeing it through the lens of today. And your film does not do that.
Yeah, that bothers me, in fact. There are films, because of course, today we have technology which has made our life easier and it's more democratic in a way to make a film. When I was, when I fell in love with films still as a child and then in my teenage years, and the look of a film was dictated by the industrial aspects of filmmaking. So a Fox film from the US would have the deluxe look, which is fine. I mean, you would associate that with, a certain kind of film coming out of the United States. The French films would have the éclair look, which is the lab in France, and so forth. And the Brazilian films would look a certain way because of the Brazilian labs and the equipment we had available, and also the way negative was exposed. So everything looked very specific. When you look at Apocalypse Now, it's Technicolor, but it's from Italy, and it's Technovision and very specific. With digital things, I mean, today you can go to the cinema in a multiplex, and the city council might pay for a publicity spot, and it might look exactly like the main feature, which is an interesting challenge, because how can you make your film look different? And we talked a lot about this, myself and Evgenia Alexandrova, she's the DOP. And one thing I suggested is we should use, because I'm just in love with those lenses, when the look of the lenses, the Panavision anamorphic lenses. And they are 55, 54 years old. These are the E series. And we thought that using what is today seen as imperfect look of those lenses, because the lenses today, they're too modern, too sharp. Yes. They're very sharp, super mega sharp. And this is probably something that I dislike. But using a modern camera, the LX35, which is a fantastic digital camera, I thought that we might be able to get an interesting look. Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy with the film, with the way the film looks. Thank you.
There's one person that agrees.
Dealing with a dark period in Brazilian history does not give me the desire to make everything dark. Mm-hmm. Quite the opposite. I think even as we go through difficult moments, life is still colorful, I guess.
And vibrant.
I understand some films where it's always rainy, and I get it. And there are moments, even in Recife, we might have a very rainy week. But I don't think I would do a rainy film, through and through. Maybe a couple of sequences with rain, but life is sunny and it's rainy, it's cloudy and overcast, but it's always colorful. And I think the darkness of it comes from the logic of society and the logic of some characters and the logic of life in society, not from the weather or from the way you're timing your the photography.
Yeah. In an extraordinary film, there is one moment that left me, that took my breath away, is the moment where Marcelo finds out that he is a target and he's inside a movie theater and he walks into the carnival and is a 15-minute uninterrupted take with a dolly and so many extras. It's a stunning, powerful scene that speaks so much about the story. Can you tell us about the importance, the significance of that moment, and how difficult was it to shoot?
Yeah, I think Carnival is a beautiful thing. The Carnival in Brazil, the one we have in Recife is, I think, is really something special in terms of music and color and the irreverence, and it's anarchic in many ways, and it's the second film that I get to shoot an idea of a possibility of a version for cinema of what Carnival is, or what I think Carnival is. In Pictures of Ghosts, there is an extended sequence, but it's documentary-like,
yes,
with a very fixed shot camera. In this film, it's fiction, so it's widescreen, 250 extras, a crane, a cinema, actors. So it's a completely different take from the point of view of the cinema point of view. It's a different take from the one I did in Pictures of Ghosts. But I like both. But the challenge there was to choreograph camera Wagner, his feeling towards the idea of Carnival, and of course the action, which was it was a beautiful evening when we shot that, because it just became Carnival. It wasn't just pretending to be a Carnival. It just became Carnival in a very authentic way. But it was very much about sound, and it took a full week to mix that sequence because it's the most layered moment in the film, and because we have the music coming in and the music going out and the carnival coming in, and it's probably the loudest moment in the film.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had heard how it sounded in this place. And I think there is something fundamentally Brazilian also about the way he leaves the cinema and he just stops and stares at the carnival and decides to go in. Because in Brazil, Carnival can be so strong that whatever problem you have in your life, you will postpone it for a week. Wow. Any Brazilians in the audience? You agree with what I just said about postponing problems? And I'll fix it after Carnival. I'll think about after Carnival. You know? And I think that's what he does. He just goes for it
and gets swallowed up.
He's swallowed by the crowd. Yeah.
We never lose track of where he is walking, but he's surrounded by close to 200 people, 300 people. Yeah. Was that a concern of yours?
We had two cameras, so one of them was supposed to be closer to him, and the other one was supposed to show. It was supposed to go very wide and show how big the whole situation was, and I think it worked in the end. And Evgenia had one of those moons that they hang over the location, so that was the key lights, and I'm just happy with the way it turned out, and I think it's a good moment in the film.
It's powerful. There's so many symbols in this film. I lost track. You know, the hairy leg, the sharks, the cat with the two faces. Tell us in particular the hairy leg. I mean, and the hairy leg ends up being a B-movie monster in the middle of your film. You use stop motion for that sequence.
Yeah, the hairy leg. I was a journalist for many years, and I worked in the newsroom in a newspaper. But I also remembered as a child the legend of the hairy leg. The legend of the hairy leg was very simple. Because of censorship, journalists couldn't really say what happened last night at the park, which was the police or the military police would, it was like a crackdown against the gay community. And instead of saying that the police did this, they created this code, the hairy leg did this. But it was actually, they were talking about the police. So by publishing and writing about the hairy leg, they could get the story out, which created a really unusual situation. And I remember my mom reading about the hairy leg over breakfast to myself and to my brother, just like Teresa Vittoria reads from the newspaper in the film. And I remember her saying, but this is really bizarre. It's not in the literary section. It's in the metro section. So it was printed as a real story, but of course it was completely fantastique, because it was about a disembodied leg that came jumping and hopping from the dark, and then it began to kick people. And that was the story that was published. And you can, and I found the original stories published in the paper when I was doing research for pictures of ghosts. And that's when, this idea for me to bring the hairy leg into the secret agent came. But the challenge was how can I fit the story into the film? And then, of course, through the newspaper. Once you have anyone reading anything from a piece of paper, it should work. And then I did it in stop motion also.
Stop motion, yeah. The whole script, it shape shifts in tone. It's one moment a thriller, then it gets romantic, then it's political, then it should tell us navigating the tones in the movie.
It takes a long time to get the script ready. I wrote more than a year and less than 2 years. I'm not exactly sure how long it took me to write the script, but it's really about understanding, falling in love with ideas, understanding that this idea may be used in this film, and maybe this other idea I can save for another film. And then 6 months later, I realized that the idea I thought wouldn't fit in this film might fit now because of other developments. And I think that once I understood that the film is very much about telling stories, because there are many devices in the film,
Correct.
People, which is I think it's always a beautiful thing when you talk to someone, you talk to a friend. That's storytelling. You're telling a story to a friend.
Yes.
So you have that in the film. You have someone telling a story to a tape recorder, which is another way of looking at it. You have the newspapers, you have the films, and you have people listening in the future.
Yes.
And we have music, which also help tell the story in a way. We have someone who's been hired to do something, hiring somebody else to do the same thing. So these are all interesting developments in my mind, in terms of storytelling. And then in the end, we also have the city, which cities also tell stories by the way they change.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the cinema telling all these different forms of stories.
Yeah, and I thought a lot about the blood bank. I think blood is a really fascinating element, of course. Stuff of life, of course, but blood has a lot of information, coded information, and I think it's a wonderful element, which, by the way, I have to say, the Boa Vista Cinema is where I saw Star Wars when I was 9 years old. It closed 2 years later, in December 31st, 1979. And then it became a supermarkets, just became other stuff. Office supply store, private university, and then finally a private blood bank. So I didn't make it up, you know. I could have hidden that information from you, but I couldn't have made that up. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing, and that's exactly where I saw Star Wars. Wow. It's a blood bank, and I just couldn't ignore it. And we approached. By the way, Emily Lesclos, the producer of the film, is right here
in the second row. Yeah. Please.
So Emily approached this place, and they were very happy to let us use it. And it's in the film.
That's great.
Yeah.
Please shut this down. If there's no truth behind it, but I was struck by the what do you call beetle that starts the movie, and it's bright yellow, and I couldn't help but think about the diamond yellow in the Brazilian flag, and that yellow is, people wear a lot of yellow in Brazil in sports, etc. Yeah. Is there a significance to the yellow beetle, or it just happened to be random yellow color?
What you said probably makes a lot of sense, but I really kept. I'm not shutting him down. But
you're welcome to shut me down.
No, but what I really had in mind was my uncle's Volkswagen Beetle from childhood, the car that I remember, and it was a yellow Beetle. Yeah. And I think the cars at the time, they had very bright colors.
Yes.
Today they're all gray or black.
Post-globalization, everything looks the same.
Yeah. I mean, just going back to what I said about the look of films back in the past, I also remember a time when American cars looked very distinct. And today you come to the US and you see all the cars that you see everywhere, so, even in terms of shape and design. Mm-hmm. So at the time, the colors were very strong for cars, so yellow, bright blue, bright red, brown, white also, and green, and I came to realize this when we were finding the cars. We found a lot of collectors who had, cars to let us use to rent for the production.
Tell me about the character of Marcelo. It's a thriller, but Marcelo, he's not an activist. He's not a spy. He's a good man, an ordinary man, caught in this situation that is outside his control, and all he wants is just a good life.
I think when a country is going through a dark political moment, you don't have to be a guerrilla fighter to get in trouble. All you have to do is say, this is blue, and somebody will have a problem with the fact that you're saying that this is blue, because he or she wants you to say that this is black or brown. So I discussed the character for so long with Wagner, and I said it's almost like the no good deed shall go unpunished. Mm-hmm. That's, I think, the logic of what happened to so many people in Brazil in the dictatorship. And also recently with the president who's about to go to jail, Bolsonaro. Many people got in trouble because of nothing, because they were right. You know, they were doing everything the right way and the way that things should be done. Mm-hmm. And I also said to Wagner, I don't want you to run around with a gun in this film. I don't want you to pull a gun or kill anybody or shoot anybody with a gun. Other characters might do that, but this character is just a classic. He's a good man and a classic hero. Even very classic popular cinema hero, I think. Could be French, could be Hollywood, could be classic Brazilian film hero. And very easy to identify, full of empathy. Mm-hmm. Not a perfect man, but a good man. And I'm very happy, very proud of having had the opportunity to work with
he's
Wagner
sensational.
Moura. He's great.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And
the subtlety of when he plays his son is, I mean, I noticed that he has a different accent.
Yeah. He came up with a different accent because the whole film he has, let's say, a standard neutral northeastern accent. But when he plays the son, he has a very credible, beautiful Recife accent. Mm-hmm. And that he never told me he was preparing that accent, because we shot that. Those are the two last days of shooting for the film. So that was his goodbye from the film.
I'm being told I have to wrap up, and I have so many questions to ask you, but I do want to slip in the finding out about Marcelo's death the way we do. It's like secondhand. I've never seen that done in a movie where we don't see the death on screen.
Yeah, I tried to write a sequence, but I did not want to shoot that scene. I was not interested in shooting that scene. And I remember...
Why were you not?
Because once I began to write the scene, I thought that any one of you would know exactly what was about to happen in that scene. And I also think that throughout my life, and also, as I said, my mother was a historian, and she mentioned things that she discovered in looking at archives, letters, newspapers, documents, memos, reports, that she found shocking. And they came in a very brutal, these are the hard facts. I also have a childhood memory, which is when I was about 10, I think, around about the same time I set the film, but it was in 78. I saw Brazil's Life magazine, which is Manchete magazine at the time. They had a 6-page coverage of the Aldo Moro, the Italian prime minister's kidnapping, which was ultra-violent on the streets of Rome. And I saw the black and white pictures of the cars which were shot with machine guns, and the dead security men, with blood on their faces, and that had a really strong impact on me. And I think these days, these kinds of pictures, almost like Ouija pictures, those police pictures from the 40s, 50s, and 60s in New York City, these pictures are not really used in journalism anymore. And I wanted a picture like that to give you the information of what happened to him. I think that's why that's what I wanted to do, since it's a story about storytelling and about time, and cinema can fold time in a very sometimes a very beautiful way, sometimes in a shocking way. And that's the ending that I wrote for the film. And my first AD, he was very concerned throughout the whole shoot. He was asking always, "Are you sure you don't have a plan B? Because we can do something." And I says, "No, I'm quite sure this is what I want for the film."
No. Well,
and I understand some people just do not accept the ending. Most people get it and love it and find it moving. But that's the ending that I love, and that's the ending in the film.
it's definitely shocking and haunting. I imagine if we had seen it, but actually the fact we don't see it, it's more shocking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you're brilliant, and I enjoy talking to you so much. I could go on talking to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Spread the word on the film, gang. Thank you.